2021, my wife and I moved into a ground-level apartment in a small complex just outside of town. It was one of those single-story buildings built on a slab foundation with a bunch of units around you and all kinds of neighbors. You never really think twice about what's beneath you in a place like this, because you assume there's nothing there. But unfortunately, I was wrong. Shortly after we moved in, our property management scheduled a Wi-Fi upgrade for the entire building. New router, faster speeds, and fresh cabling that had to be run through the entire building. 2 techs showed up at our place to do the install. Both were friendly, normal guys who explained what they were doing as they worked. I was in grad school at the time and working on assignments while they set everything up, only half paying attention. Part of the installation involved running a cable underneath the apartment, and I remember that part clearly because it stood out to me even then. There was this small access opening outside our building. It wasn't a full crawl space entrance, but more like a service hatch. You had to crouch and slide in, but once you were underneath, you were directly beneath our floors with enough room to move around. One of the techs lay flat on his stomach and crawled underneath our apartment with a flashlight, while the other stayed inside with us and fed the internet cable through a small hole near the washing machine. While they were working, you could hear everything beneath the floor. Movement, fabric shifting, slow scraping sounds, and the occasional dull thump. It was unsettling, but it made sense. Someone was under our apartment doing a job. Of course, it was going to sound strange. They finished within an hour, tested the connection, and left. Everything worked. And after that, I didn't think about the space underneath me for years. Until last week. My wife is in the National Guard, so once a month she's gone for drill weekend. That night, she was away, and I was home alone. That's kind of my luck. All the weird stuff happens when I'm home by myself. I was up late, right around midnight, playing video games with my headphones on. At some point, I paused the game because I thought I heard something. It was this soft, dragging sound, faint enough that I almost ignored it. The building is old. It could be pipes, air ducts, normal apartment noises. Those things happen, especially at night. But when I heard it again, I instantly froze. Because in that moment, I remembered the installation for the first time since it happened. The cable, the tech crawling underneath us all those years ago, the movement underneath, the sound was identical. I took my headphones off and muted everything. There was no mistaking it. Someone was moving under the apartment, directly beneath my feet. What scared me wasn't just the noise, it was how familiar it felt. The same rhythm, the same slow repositioning, like a body was shifting in a space that barely fits one person. Except this time, it was almost 1 in the morning. Who the fuck was supposed to be down there? I sat completely still, listening to the sound with my heart racing. The sound moved, then stopped, then started again before going quiet. My brain kept trying to stay logical. Maybe it was an animal, but it didn't sound light or frantic. There were no claws, no scurrying. The sound had weight to it. That's when I also remember the access opening outside, the same small hatch the cable guy had used. I hadn't thought about it in years, but I suddenly realized that the opening was technically large enough for a person. I don't know why I did what I did next. Curiosity, adrenaline, stupidity. Probably all of it combined. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and walked toward the small interior hole near the washer where the cable ran through. I crouched down and shined the light inside. It was completely dark. Then as I leaned in closer, something looked back at me. An eye. Just one eye. Clearly human, We both reacted at the same time. I jumped back so hard I nearly fell over, and from beneath the floor I heard a loud thud, like someone hitting their head or shoulder against the subfloor. After that, everything turned chaotic. Whoever was under me panicked immediately, moving as fast as possible in a space that clearly wasn't meant for it. I could hear frantic movement, scraping, and shifting as they tried to get away. I ran to the front door, locked it, and called the police. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone. I could still hear movement beneath the floor while I was on the call. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me until officers arrived. By the time they got there, everything was quiet. They checked outside first and came inside. They listened carefully, knocked on the door, and one officer went around back with a flashlight and crawled underneath the building. They said they found evidence almost immediately. The access opening had been disturbed. The dirt was shifted. There were scratches along the edges, clear signs someone had been crawling in and out. They opened the space further and realized this wasn't someone who had just been there that night. Underneath my apartment, they found empty bottles, cheap liquor, beer cans, food wrappers, old clothes, a flashlight, and an unsettling amount of underwear. Someone had been living under my apartment. They estimated it had been going on for months, maybe longer. They thought the person was probably intoxicated most of the time, which explained how he stayed hidden and why he eventually got careless enough to move around while people were home. Their theory was that he heard my game audio and assumed the apartment was otherwise empty until he made a mistake. The worst part is they never caught him. He was gone before they arrived. He's still out there. I didn't stay there that night or the nights after, and for a few weeks, every sound beneath the floor made my heart race. Even after maintenance sealed everything and management increased patrols, I couldn't shake the feeling. Because what still gets to me is this. He knew our routines. He knew when we were gone. He knew when we were asleep. He knew exactly how much noise he could make. The only reason I ever found out he existed was because he got careless that night. Sometimes I think about how many nights he was under us, while we watched TV, while we slept, while my wife walked around half-clothed. And I don't know what scares me more, that he was there, or that if he hadn't slipped up, he probably still would be. My girlfriend and I got back from our weekend trip a few days ago, and something felt wrong almost immediately. We'd only been gone for 2 nights, but when we unlocked the door Sunday evening and stepped inside, we could clearly tell the space had been used while we were gone. Every cabinet door in the apartment was open. The kitchen cabinets, both upper and lower, including the one above the fridge that we never use. Drawers were pulled halfway out, the pantry door stood open, the medicine cabinet, the linen closet, the bedroom closet, even the small cabinet under the bathroom sink. Pretty much everything was open except for our front door. We stood there for a few minutes in silence, trying to decide whether to panic or come up with a reasonable explanation. My first thought wasn't anything supernatural. It was rather simple. Someone had been inside our apartment. The realization brought an immediate sense of urgency. We started moving, checking every room together. The bedroom, the bathroom, the shower, behind the curtain, under the bed. No one was present. Nothing was broken either. Nothing had been dumped out or tossed aside. It didn't look like someone had been searching for valuables. My MacBook was still on the desk. The TV was still mounted. Her expensive earrings were exactly where she had left them. My grandfather's Omega watch worth more than I'm comfortable admitting, was still sitting where I always kept it. The iPad hadn't been touched. The cameras were still plugged in. Everything important was still there. It started to feel more like someone had gone through the apartment without any clear goal. And somehow, that made it worse. Because if someone had broken in, they either didn't want anything, or they weren't there to steal. That's when the questions really started. Why open everything? What was the goal? We checked the locks. The deadbolt was fine, no pry marks, no damage. The chain hadn't been disturbed. All the windows were closed and locked. There were no signs of forced entry anywhere. At first, we told ourselves it had to be maintenance. That explanation made the most sense. Maybe someone had come in to check something, got interrupted, and didn't bother closing anything. But we hadn't requested any work. There were no emails, no notices, and no notes that were left behind. And even if maintenance had come through, it didn't explain why every cabinet had been opened. We called the building office the next morning and asked them to check their logs. They told us there were no work orders, no inspections, and no reason for anyone to enter our unit while we were gone. That was when it stopped being confusing and started feeling rather unsettling. We tried to think back to the last time we'd seen the apartment normal. It was right before we left. We'd both come home from work, changed clothes, packed our bags, and walked out the door for our weekend getaway. And no, nothing had been left open when we left. My girlfriend is the most meticulous person I know before trips. She double checks everything, lights off, stove off, cabinet shut. She doesn't leave unless the place feels completely settled. And cabinets don't just open themselves, not evenly, not throughout an entire apartment. Drawers don't slide out to the same distance on their own. So how did this happen? We tried to rationalize it. Maybe air pressure, vibrations from the building, maybe we were misremembering. But the details didn't support that. Some cabinet doors were wide open. Others were only cracked, like whoever opened them had stopped halfway. Bathroom drawers were pulled out just enough to see inside. The cutlery drawer sat slightly crooked, as if it had been pushed back, but not all the way. It didn't feel random. It felt deliberate. Neither of us slept well that night, not because we thought someone would come back, but because nothing made sense. The next morning, while we were talking through it again, my girlfriend mentioned something very important. The doorbell camera did not go off once. That alone was strange, as we usually get alerts for everything. Delivery drivers, neighbors walking by, even wind sometimes. But there were no notifications, not a single motion alert. So we opened the app. We didn't jump to conclusions, we just started reviewing the footage carefully, scrubbing through the entire weekend we were gone, day by day, night by night. It took us over an hour, but there was nothing we could find. No one approached the door, no one entered, no one left, not even a false trigger. According to the footage, the front door was never opened. That's when our very last explanation fell apart. If no one came through the door and none of the windows were touched, then how did someone get inside? We checked timestamps, looked for gaps, went through system logs. Everything looked normal. There was no explanation. After that, we just stopped talking. We just sat there quietly for a while. We don't think it was a break-in. What sticks with me isn't even fear. It's the intent. Whoever or whatever opened everything didn't steal anything. They didn't make a mess. And they didn't try to hide that they've been there. They just opened everything for no reason and left. And the strangest detail is they didn't need to come through the door, because the door was never opened. The first apartment my husband and I rented together wasn't special. It wasn't meant to be. We had just gotten married, moved to Florida, and were sharing the place with one of his guy friends because that's all we could afford at the time. None of us had much money. We weren't looking for charm. We just needed somewhere to live while we figured things out. We were young and tired and didn't think too hard about it. From the outside, the building looked fine. It was older, sure, but nothing that made you stop and reconsider. Inside was another story. The floors were disgusting. For the first week, we honestly thought they were brown. It wasn't until we scrubbed them that we realized that they were supposed to be yellow. That probably should have told us something, but we were already unpacked by that time. The biggest issue at first was the smell. It was hard to describe, but it was something oddly sweet mixed with rot, and it hit you immediately when it showed up. All three of us assumed that something had died inside the walls. We cleaned constantly. We checked under sinks, inside cabinets, anywhere a smell might hide. It never came from a single place, but it always seemed strongest near the stairs. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it would fade away like nothing had happened. As bad as that was, it wasn't the part that stuck with me. It was the stairs. From the very beginning, something about them felt wrong. Every time I stepped onto the first step, my body reacted instantly before my thoughts could catch up. My chest would tighten, my heart would start racing, and I'd feel this sudden, unexplained urge to get off them as quickly as possible. And every time, without fail, the same image popped into my head. An old woman. I know that sounds predictable, but I don't know how else to explain it. She had white hair pulled tight into a bun, like it had been yanked back over and over for years. A narrow face, and where her eyes should have been, there were just holes. That was it. That was always it. I never saw her physically standing in the apartment, and I never saw anything out of place on the stairs. But the image was so vivid and so consistent that it didn't feel like imagination. It felt more like recalling something I didn't fully understand. Whenever I was on the stairs, I had this overwhelming sense that she was right behind me. Close enough that I turned around, she'd be there. I never turned around. I didn't scream or panic. It was quieter than that, more controlled. My body just knew that slowing down wasn't an option. More than once, I nearly tripped because I rushed so hard to get off the stairs. We also had a kitten at the time. She never liked the stairs either. Every time she went near them, she'd rush up in a panic, hissing as she climbed, as if something down there made her uncomfortable. Animals don't react like that for no reason. I started to wonder if this wasn't just in my head. Still, I didn't say anything. Neither did my husband. Neither did our roommate. There's no easy way to bring something like that up without sounding ridiculous. We all assumed it was stress or discomfort from being in a new place. We lived there for about 6 months before moving out. I remember how relieved I felt leaving. Even though I couldn't have explained why at the time, I just knew I never wanted to step foot in that house ever again. About a year later, the three of us were together for the 4th of July, drinking and reminiscing about old jobs and old apartments. That place eventually came up, and I admitted I'd never liked living there. But something about it had always felt wrong to me, especially the stairs. My husband immediately agreed. He said they bothered him every single time he used them. And then our old roommate got quiet too. He told us he'd never mention it because it sounded insane. But every time he went down those stairs, he had this weird image in his head. An old woman that looked mean, almost like a witch, with white hair pulled into a bun. Before he could say anything else, my husband and I spoke at the same time. We both said that she didn't have eyes. No one laughed or tried to explain it away. We just sat there, realizing that for months, all three of us had been experiencing the same thing, completely on our own. The same image, the same fear, the same feeling of being followed. It's been 20 years, and talking about it still gives me goosebumps. Some places feel wrong, and sometimes, when multiple people feel the same wrongness in the exact same way, you have to accept that it probably wasn't just stress or imagination. Some places just carry things with them, and sometimes the smartest thing you can do is leave before you understand why.